In a quiet southern town in the United States, there lived a girl named Jasmine Carter, the only daughter of Robert Carter, owner of one of the oldest and most reputable leather shoe workshops in the area. Her mother, Diana, died shortly after giving birth, leaving the newborn Jasmine to the care of her father and the cold mercy of fate. But instead of receiving a father's full love, Jasmine grew up under the shadow of Elaine, the stepmother Robert married a few years later. Elaine saw Jasmine as nothing more than a burden, a bitter reminder of the woman who came before her. Her affection was reserved only for her own daughter, Vanessa, who grew up spoiled, arrogant, and cruel. Life in that house for Jasmine was a cycle of chores, humiliation, and aching loneliness. She was denied proper schooling, isolated from friendships, and made to feel like she didn't belong. Her only solace came from Nana Grace, the family's loyal housekeeper who had cared for Jasmine since she was a child. Nana Grace secretly saved up bits of her salary to buy Jasmine sketch pads and colored pencils, the only things that made her feel truly alive. Despite the hardship, Jasmine never lost hope. Deep inside, she believed that if she stayed strong, if she endured without giving up, then someday life would offer her something better. She clung to the dream that one day fate would change, that somewhere in the distance a miracle was waiting. What Jasmine didn't expect was that her miracle would arrive disguised as a dark bargain, one that would see her traded away like a debt unpaid. That autumn, the Carter family began to crumble. The once proud leather shoe workshop owned by Robert Carter, a cornerstone of the local town, was falling apart. Orders dwindled, machines broke down, and workers started quitting in waves. But the real reason wasn't the economy. It was a dark secret Robert had been hiding for years: his gambling addiction. To cover his mounting losses, he borrowed a large sum from a man named Damian Brooks, a name that made even grown men uneasy. Damian wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He ran a notorious underground lending ring, and with him, every loan came with a cruel cost. This time, the cost was Jasmine. It was Elaine, Jasmine's stepmother, who arranged everything. With a rare sweetness in her tone, she sat Jasmine down and painted a picture of duty and sacrifice. She urged her to temporarily serve as a maid in Damian's estate in exchange for her father's safety and the family's honor. "Just a few weeks," she whispered. "Once your father pays him back, you'll come home." Driven by love and devotion to her father, Jasmine didn't protest. Even though her gut told her something felt wrong, she nodded in quiet obedience. All she wanted was to save the workshop, her mother's legacy. But Jasmine had no idea that behind the towering gates of Damian's mansion, her life was about to be rewritten into a story with no escape. The black car pulled up in front of an old mansion nestled deep within vast open land, where the wind whispered through rows of trees like secrets in the dark. Jasmine Carter clenched her hands on her lap and swallowed hard as she gazed up at the towering iron gate, its cold metal curled with ornate vines. The driver turned to her. "They're waiting inside." She stepped out, her hands trembling. This place wasn't like anything she had ever known. It wasn't warm nor familiar, just a heavy silence pressing in from all sides. The main door creaked open, revealing a bald older man in a black suit who gave a slight bow. "I'm Mr. Joe, the caretaker. Please follow me." Jasmine nodded, wordless, dragging her suitcase as they walked down a dim hallway lined with antique paintings and flickering lights. They entered a grand sitting room where a man sat with his back to them in a leather chair behind a large oak desk. "No need for introductions," came a deep, even voice. "You already know who I am. Damian Brooks." Jasmine bowed her head. "Yes, sir. I'm here to work." "No need for small talk," he replied, still not turning around. "Mr. Joe will show you to your room. You'll start work tomorrow." Everything happened so fast that Jasmine barely had time to think. She simply nodded and followed Mr. Joe up the winding stairs. Her room was at the far end of the second floor. When the door opened, she gasped softly. It was spacious. A large bed, a wide wardrobe, and a window that overlooked the garden below. "This is your room," Mr. Joe said kindly. "Let me know if you need anything." Once he left, Jasmine sank onto the bed, gripping her hands together. This wasn't a prison, but it wasn't freedom either. The silence was too perfect, too still. She didn't know what waited for her in this house, but one thing was certain: this wasn't the maid's job Elaine had promised her. The next morning, Jasmine woke early and went looking for the kitchen. To her dismay, it was a sleek, modern culinary space filled with appliances she had no idea how to use. "How am I supposed to cook with this?" she mumbled, staring blankly at the stovetop. A voice cut through the air like a knife. "Planning to burn my house down?" Jasmine spun around. Damien was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes fixed firmly on her. From that morning onward, everything shifted. Instead of yelling or ignoring her, Damien Brooks stepped into the kitchen, rolled up his sleeves, and began cooking. Jasmine stood frozen, unable to believe her eyes. The feared man from every town whisper was calmly slicing vegetables, boiling water, and walking her through every step, not as a harsh creditor, but as a surprisingly patient teacher. "Using the electric stove," Damien said in his even tone. "Don't twist too hard. A light touch is all it needs." Jasmine nodded quietly, hiding her surprise. She watched him closely. His movements were precise, his demeanor calm, and his instructions clear. And yet, his eyes never stopped observing her, like he was searching for something in her face. Something familiar? Day by day, over simple, shared meals, Jasmine began to see someone else behind the mask, someone lonely, someone who had been hurt. Then one evening, after his workout, Damien casually took off his shirt to change, and Jasmine caught a glimpse of a long scar stretching across his left side. That scar, her breath caught. It was the exact same shape, the same placement, as her own, a jagged reminder from the fire that nearly took her life years ago, when she risked everything to pull a young boy out of a burning lakeside cabin. "No way," Jasmine whispered, stumbling back a step. Her heart raced as if trying to escape her chest. The room seemed to tilt. Too many thoughts, too many memories, all crashing in at once. Damien turned slowly, catching her wide-eyed gaze. "Did you say something?" Jasmine couldn't speak. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her eyes locked onto his, searching, remembering, breaking. Memories surged in like waves crashing through her mind. Could it be? Could he really be that boy? Jasmine couldn't sleep that night. She tossed and turned on the soft bed, her thoughts in disarray. That scar, that voice, those eyes. All of it pointed to a memory she had never forgotten. She remembered clearly the rainy day years ago, when a small lakeside cabin caught fire. Through the smoke and flames, young Jasmine ran inside without fear, saving a little boy who was crying. Together, they jumped into the lake to escape. Before parting, she said, "Live well, and if we ever meet again, remember this word, Orion." The next morning, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She had to talk to Damien. He was sitting in the back garden, eyes half closed as if deep in thought. As Jasmine approached, her heart pounded wildly. "Damien," she called softly. He opened his eyes. "Something wrong?" She hesitated. "I have a question. When you were around 8 years old, were you ever trapped in a cabin by the lake? Did a girl save you?" Damien sat up straight. His face changed. How do you know that?" Jasmine placed her hand on her stomach, where her scar still faintly remained. "Because I was the one who saved you." Silence filled the air. Then suddenly, Damien stood, slowly walked toward her, and gently lifted her sleeve, revealing a scar. His gaze lingered, unmoving. "Lion," he whispered. "You said that word when we parted." Tears welled in Jasmine's eyes. "It's you. It's really you." And in that moment, with the wind gently brushing the flowers and the earth beneath them still, the past and the present finally found each other again. After that fateful morning, nothing was the same again. Jasmine and Damien didn't need many words. Their eyes told 1,000 stories. During peaceful breakfasts, afternoons spent tending the garden, and quiet evenings under the warm yellow glow of a lamp, the space between them began to disappear. Jasmine was no longer afraid of Damien. In its place grew curiosity, admiration, and eventually something deeper. Damien was different too. He had closed himself off for years, but ever since Jasmine arrived, the ice around him began to crack. He laughed more, spoke more, and surprisingly, he started telling her about an old dream: to open an art workshop where children could paint, sculpt, or simply feel safe. One evening, they sat beneath the porch, gazing at a sky full of stars. "Do you think us meeting again was meant to be?" Jasmine asked, voice soft as the breeze. Damien turned to her. "I don't believe in coincidence. What do you think?" "I'm not sure," Jasmine smiled faintly. "But if this is fate, I think I know the reason." "What reason?" She met his eyes. "So I could learn to trust, and you could learn to love." Damien didn't reply. He simply reached out and gently took her hand. No words needed, only the quiet thrum of warmth passing between their palms. Under the silver moonlight, they were no longer strangers, but two pieces, finally fitting together. Only 3 days remained before Jasmine and Damien's engagement. The mansion buzzed with preparations, flowers, lights, soft music. Everything seemed perfect. Jasmine had never felt so happy. But storms never let her rest for long. That afternoon, as she was trying on her gown, a maid knocked on her door. "Miss Jasmine, someone sent you a personal gift. They asked that I deliver it directly." Jasmine opened the small box. A sweet, pungent scent rushed out. Her vision blurred. The room spun, then darkness. When she awoke, Jasmine found herself tied up, gagged, and lying in a cold basement. The place was painfully familiar, the old family home. The rusted door creaked open. Stepping inside was none other than Tanya. "Did you really think you'd get your fairy tale ending?" she hissed. "You're out of the picture now. I'll take your place. Damien won't even notice." Jasmine struggled against the ropes, her eyes burning with tears, but Tanya just laughed and slammed the door shut. Back at the mansion, Aunt May grew uneasy after not seeing Jasmine all evening. She called Mr. Walker, who wasted no time. Something in his gut told him where to look. They arrived at the old house. The front door creaked. Wind howled through the broken shutters. It seemed abandoned until Mr. Walker heard a faint thump beneath the floorboards. "Basement," he said sharply. Aunt May grabbed a flashlight. The descent was steep and cold. When they forced the old iron door open, Jasmine lay there trembling, bound, barely conscious. "Papa," she sobbed as her father rushed to free her and hold her close. That night, they brought her back to the mansion. The moment Damien saw her, he didn't say a word. He just ran and pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm okay. I'm home," Jasmine whispered. The next morning, in the back garden of the mansion, the scent of blooming flowers filled the air, but Jasmine's heart was heavy with the weight of betrayal. Tanya had been caught the night before and was now under strict watch, awaiting police custody. Jasmine walked slowly toward her. The girl she once called sister now sat in shame and silence. "Why, Tanya?" Jasmine's voice trembled, but her gaze was steady. Tanya looked up, her eyes empty. "Because you always had what I didn't. A family, love, Damien. So you were willing to risk my life for that?" Jasmine's voice cracked with hurt. "He wouldn't have chosen you if I had a real chance," Tanya spat. "You're just lucky." Jasmine took a deep breath. "No, I'm not. I was abandoned, treated like I didn't exist in my own home. But I didn't seek revenge. I chose to forgive. Until yesterday." Tanya looked down, silent. "You can't steal love by force. Real love never comes from fear." With that, Jasmine turned away, leaving Tanya motionless. finally forced to face the truth and the bitter weight of her own failure. Time passed. Jasmine became a painter. She opened a small studio by the lake, once the only peaceful place from her childhood. Her paintings, vibrant and emotional, began gaining attention in the art world. Damien stepped away from shady dealings. He became a legitimate investor, supporting young artists, funding local communities, and most importantly, spending much of his time with Jasmine. One quiet afternoon, Jasmine returned to the cemetery where her mother rested, carrying white lilies. She laid them down and gently touched the cold stone. "Mom, I'm okay now. I'm no longer afraid. Thank you for watching over me, even when I didn't know it." Her tears fell softly, but they were tears of healing. Their wedding took place in the small garden behind the mansion. No extravagance, no spectacle, just loved ones, warm hugs, and simple blessings. Damien held Jasmine's hand under the soft afternoon light. "Are you sure?" Jasmine nodded, her eyes glistening. "More sure than I've ever been." And they kissed, not because it was a beginning, but because after all the storms, they had finally found their way back to each other. Years had passed since the quiet garden wedding behind their home. Jasmine and Damien's life remained simple but full of love. Each day a new step in building their home, their family, their peace. Jasmine had become a recognized artist. Her paintings were exhibited in cities like Paris, Tokyo, and New York, yet she chose to stay in the small town that had once seen her deepest pain, and now her greatest joy. Damien, once a cold-hearted moneylender, had transformed into a responsible investor, focusing on supporting young artists and community-driven businesses. All because of one promise: to live better. For Jasmine, Mr. Walker's Shoe Company had also been revived, now a family-run, community-based enterprise. At last, he had the chance to right his wrongs and help fulfill the dream his late wife once had for their daughter. That afternoon, Jasmine sat by the lake, a box of paints on her lap. Beside her, their 5-year-old daughter, with bright brown eyes and flushed cheeks, was sketching clumsily. Damien sat a few steps behind them, reading a book. His gaze drifted occasionally to the two, a quiet smile on his lips. "Mom, am I coloring it right?" Jasmine smiled and brushed a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "It's beautiful. A painting doesn't have to look real, just feel real." The little girl nodded. Damien stood, walked over, and gently placed a hand on Jasmine's shoulder. He looked at their daughter, bright-eyed, fearless, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Years ago, he had been a lost boy, broken and angry. Now, he was home. Jasmine looked out over the peaceful lake. This had once been the place she ran to escape the world. Now, it was where she built her world, with the ones she loved. Love never truly disappears. It only waits for the courage to believe in it again. And sometimes, family doesn't have to be perfect. Just being together is enough.